expecting. What up, everybody? Miggy and Tom here to talk about some shit we weren't expecting. In New York State, those officials are considering whether to allow restaurants to sell weed-infused foods. Most cannabis laws have very stringent edible guidelines for requirements for dosing. And therefore, you never really see any type of license that allows for this, where you would have food establishments being able to create their own infused wares and sell them. And so this is a brand new type of license, or whatever it's going to become, if it actually happens.
This is just the law catching up with what's going on in New York. You know, right now in New York, there's a lot of people who are doing their own thing. 2 years ago, I knew a guy who went to New York for business, and they offered him CBD to be added to his food. So this is before legalization. So even then, they were trying to infuse CBD into their dinners. And I'm kind of in the talks with some people based out of Houston, that also are from New York, that an alcohol, rum-infused cannabis, they want to try and get out here. Let's see. And if vessel, is that just an article? Shit. So legal marijuana sales kicked off in Jersey. New York legalized in 2021. I think that was the end of the article.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And so that's the headline of it. The Office of Cannabis Management, and that's the lead cannabis regulator in the state of New York, has been approached and asked by New York pizzerias and other restaurants if they can sell weed-infused foods. Like I said, this really never happens with your edible license. Your edible license, I don't have any packaging of edibles, but they have requirements regarding dosing and amounts. And so the max in this state, Illinois, is 10 milligrams. And when you do these infusions, especially at a restaurant where they aren't necessarily doing the type of science to get that standardization of the specific dose, that's why I just don't think we've ever seen them. Not to say that they won't happen.
Yeah. Well, there's been catering. There's been pop-ups, even in LA. There's those secret pop-up dinners that pop up.
There's a secret.
Yeah,
that's the thing. They didn't get a license for that stuff. It's like wink, wink. We're charging a gate fee for the band.
But when you do the license, though, I mean, really, what are you paying for? As far as what is the consumer being protected? And I think something like that's going to be you're going to know okay, you start with a X amount milligram bar of butter. You're going to have notes, because there's going to be ways to figure out.
Would there be approved? That would be awesome if you could get a recipe approved at a restaurant. And so it's the Office of Cannabis Management, or your regulator in your state. I'm looking at you, Department of Agriculture in my state, and then of course there'll be something else soon. How do you go by and certify if these are your SOPs to a certain extent? Give me the recipe that you want to serve, and then that recipe would call for a particular amount, and there would be so many cuts of the cake or so many dishes of the stew. And by dishes, I mean ladles. And so with that, then I think it becomes very, very easy to be able to create these types of licenses, which I think would be great. And then it's just if the restaurant wants to do it, they have to apply, they have to tender their SOPs, and then they can't go ridiculous. There would be a limit. It's you can't go over this many milligrams according to your recipe's SOPs.
Well, and you're going to also be involving distillates, besides butter, there's going to be using RSO. I think it's going to be coming up to the chef, right? It's going to be their secret sauce. I heard it best explained. It's going to follow along with the next coming topic. But this podcast I was listening to, we're talking about how things are regulated. And Obama put it best. He's look, you're a hot dog maker. You don't give your hot dog recipe to everybody, but you got to give it to the FDA guy so he knows what they're putting into it. And then that's it. And it's kind of what I do. I do with the services and support. I don't care how your antenna works. I'm just here to check things and make sure things function. Now you go ahead and do your secret sauce to it. There's a way to do things that everybody, it's open-ended, right? It's going to be okay, I know I'm going into this knowing that they're going to use 1,000 milligrams of RSO and
Well, I think that's just when you're doing these types of new things, then these are regulations that never existed before, and such a stigma. That's going to be our last story, but we'll hang out for that one.
Yeah.
And such a stigma that's been out there that they aren't really sure how to regulate it, and so they just usually make it really really small, low and slow, start like that, and so as a result, they've always just been very, very against these types of hard to keep ahead of and control over infused types. But then as people get more accustomed to the concept, and then I just made butter today, right? Fantastic. And so now we get to make cookies. What a beautiful thing. Everybody should be so lucky. And then if I had a recipe for those cookies, and I've done it before, but it's like back of the napkin math kind of stuff. I think this cookie has this many milligrams. And so you could standardize it a little bit more. But when that restaurant is making that food, they don't have to send every plate that comes up down to testing to make sure that it tests,
Right.
I think that would be part of the regulations. You would buy the cannabis, shake or whatever you're going to do.
Yep.
And then you're allowed to start from that substrate. And then from that, you can create your butter and do your own extraction.
That's what I'm saying. It's the known variables can be the beginning of the plant, right? Like if you want to watch Bong Appetit or any of these other weed cooking shows, these guys are using crystal distillate, just THCA or THCB, or they're mixing in CBDs. There's going to be a plethora of combinations that people can use. It's not going to always be canna butter. But I tell you what, though, it'd be awesome one day to get a pizza and the guy has a grinder full of weed and he's like, all right, tell me to say when,
well, it has to be activated. That's the thing. Weed is not Parmesan cheese unless it's already been decarbed. And so I didn't decarb today's extraction of the butter, and therefore it did not get hot enough to really get decarbed. But it's still the same polar, and so it still separates out because it's an oil and it's a cannabinoid. And so when you bake the cookies, that'll pop it over the 240 degrees in temperature, and then it'll activate.
Yeah,
at least that's the theory.
Yeah. But that's what you're going to be accounting for in your SOPs, in your procedures, in your recipes, and that's what the stamp of approval will be. And then they can order that.
That's right. You can.
Dude, your hair's so long.
Yep, it's ridiculous. But it's finally at this place where if they've been watching this, they're going to find out I'm going to have a mullet. So now I have to go book an appointment and get myself a proper mullet, and then I'm closing the company for 2 weeks.